Getting started with the ID badge wallet and lanyard pattern, you're going to start out with 2 coordinating fabrics. One will be your main fabric and one will be your liner. For the main fabric in class, I'm going to start you out with a 7-inch wide piece of fabric, and it's times the width of the bolt, so it's either 44 or 45 inches long. And that will take care of all of your main pieces on the outside as well as your lanyard piece. And then the coordinating piece over here, really it can just be a scrap. It needs to be at least 4 inches tall times 5.5 inches wide times 2 pieces. So you can end up using scraps on that. For this one, I just have a piece off of the bolt, but it could easily be a scrap if you want to. What you're going to do first is you're going to go ahead and cut out your pattern pieces that you'll be given in class so that you have a template to follow when you're cutting out your fabric pieces. So each of your pieces are labeled with what all they go to. Most of your pieces are for multiple things. I'm going to start out with the main fabric, and I'm going to start on the selvage end. We want to make sure that we are not using any of the selvage, so then I'm going to lay my pieces above it. This one is the wallet back main, so I'm going to go ahead, it's actually the front and back, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it this way, and I'm going to lay the edge of one side of the pattern piece along the cut edge of the fabric, and then I will end up trimming off or cutting right here, up here, and over here. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this piece. This is the window. This is going to be where the wallet, the ID badge slides in. And so I'm going to lay it right next to that. I'm actually just going to lay them touching. So then I only have to do one cut line right here. And then I'll just cut straight across here and over here. So I'm going to end up with 2 of this piece, 2 of this piece. And then the other thing that I need to do out of this main fabric is cut my 2-inch wide strip for my lanyard. How long you make that is up to you. If you want a neck lanyard, something that you'll wear hanging around your neck, you could make it either 35 or 36 inches long or longer if you prefer to have it hanging lower. Or if you would like a wrist lanyard, start out at about maybe 14 or 15 inches, depending on the size of your hands and the size of your wrist. If you like it to fit a little looser around your wrist, then maybe 15 or 16 inches by 2 inches wide. Okay, and so then what I will do after that is I will take these same pattern pieces, actually just this one right here, and I'm going to be moving it over to this fabric, and I'm going to be cutting 2 more out of the liner fabric. I'll use those same pattern pieces also to cut my interfacing, and then I'm going to need to cut zipper tabs for the D-ring and for the top of the zipper. So I can use either my main fabric or my liner. It's up to you. If you want to have a little contrast on the outside, you can use your liner fabric to do those zipper tabs and the D-ring tab. Totally up to you. If you're in my class, you can go ahead and bring your extra piece up that you're going to use for your lanyard, and I will go ahead and cut it into that 2-inch wide strip for you. Or if you already know how to use the rotary cutter, you may come do it yourself. So you cut it 2 inches wide, and then you'll cut it times whatever length you want it based on if you're going to do a neck or a wrist lanyard. And if you have any questions about that, you can see me in class, but really it is just your personal preference. Okay, this fabric over here, this was your liner. This is going to just be a scrap piece, as well as now these pieces are going to be scrap. I like how this one is all rectangular and doesn't have any jagged edges. So for this piece, I'm going to go ahead and trim off this edge right here, and we're going to store this with the big scraps along with this piece over here, and then these are going to go into the smaller scraps. So if you'll take a little bit of time in class to trim off your ends, square everything up, so these can go in with the small scraps and this can go in the trash. Your vinyl piece needs to be cut at 3¼ inches times 2¼ inches, and it's pretty tricky. This is probably one of the hardest things to cut out. So you just have your pattern piece laying down there. The reason it's hard is just it kind of sticks together and kind of, it's hard to see. So you'll just cut that piece out around your pattern piece, and you only need one piece. And then the other tricky part is once you have it cut out is not losing it. So you will have a Ziploc bag in class that you can keep all of your pieces in, and so this could go in there just so that you don't drop it and lose it, because it'll disappear on the floor if you don't keep track of it. But so I just have that one clear vinyl piece cut out of that pattern. We're starting with a interfacing bolt that is 20 inches across, so it's not the doubled over. If you have the doubled over type of interfacing that's a lot longer or wider, you could cut this out in a little bit of a different way. But with the 20-inch wide across, you're gonna start out with a 7-inch piece, so 7 inches across by 20. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this interfacing and fold it in half where the ends are touching. I'm just gonna kind of crease it down with my fingers. Then I'm gonna take the pattern pieces. This is the wallet main piece, and I need 4 of these in total. So I'm gonna start right here, cutting through 2 layers. So I'll get 2 of the 4 by laying it out and cutting it there. And then I need 2 of the window piece cut out of the interfacing. So I'm gonna lay it down right there. And then all I need to do is cut across here, down here, and over across there. We'll go ahead and get started with that first. And I still need to use this pattern piece again. So I'm gonna go ahead right over here, and I'm gonna get this as close to that cut edge as I can, and just cut straight across right here. So again, I'm cutting through 2 layers, so that way I'm going to end up with a total of 4 of those pieces, which is what I need. The reason we need 4 is because 2 of them will be fused to the liner piece, and 2 of them will be fused to the main outer piece. Okay, so I've got those. And the last thing I need is just a scrap that is at least the 4 inches long. It doesn't have to be quite 2 inches wide, so I'm just gonna take one of these little scrap pieces right here. And this is for the tab for the zipper and the D-ring. Again, it doesn't have to be as wide as the pattern piece, but about 4 inches long, okay? So now I have all of my pieces cut. These 2 are just waist. So you have your 4 interfacings, for the main. You have 2 interfacing pieces for the window, and then you have 1 interfacing piece that you'll use for the zipper tabs and the D-ring. The other thing that I have for you in class is I've already gone ahead and cut 35 by 2-inch strips for the lanyard. And what you will do is you will either use the entire thing if you're doing a neck lanyard, or if you're gonna do a wrist lanyard, you could partner up with someone in class, fold your lanyard interfacing in half like this, and then just cut across the fold right here, and then you could each take one of those pieces and cut it to the length that you need. You may have a little extra if you're doing a wrist lanyard and only using half of this, but that's better than wasting some other interfacing from somewhere, so you can share with someone. All right, we're gonna go ahead and start ironing on the interfacing. You wanna make sure that you have the bumpy glue side facing up, and then you will lay whichever piece that you are pressing at the time. You're gonna lay it wrong side down on top of the interfacing, and you will just start pressing. Okay, so you wanna make sure that you have a nice hot iron and that the interfacing glue is adhering to the back of your fabric. And we will repeat this process for all of those pieces that we have previously cut out. All right, so you should have 2 liner pieces that are the large 4 by 5.5, 2 of the main, 2 of the pocket for the ID wallet, and then 1 of the, this is gonna be your zipper tab. I did, not thinking, I cut through 2 layers, so you may end up with a scrap like this if I don't remind you and tell you otherwise, but you did only need 1 of those pieces. And then you have your lanyard piece, all with the interfacing secure on the back, okay? So now we are ready to start putting this all together. In my class, you've probably already made a loopy lanyard if you took one of the previous classes, so you already know how to do this part, but here's a little refresher. You're just going to press your fabric in half, hot dog style. This is after you have secured the interfacing to the back. And you'll just press that all the way down, get a nice crease in there, because that crease is what we're gonna press the edge to. So I'm gonna press the edge over here into that center crease. And I'm gonna do that all the way down. What you can do, if it's not wanting to stay, give it a little spritz with water. And kind of that steam will help it lay flat. To the center crease, one thing I like to do is I like to get a hold of the other end and just kind of slide the fabric through, leave the iron laying down, and slide the fabric underneath it. I don't want to do that for too long because you don't want to burn your ironing board cover. Kind of pick it up a little bit and then you can lay it back down and continue to slide it through. Okay. Now the last step in this with the pressing is just pressing in a half again. So you'll take these, I've pressed my 2 ends into the center, and now I'm just going to fold that over. So I have all the raw edges tucked in on the inside and have nice, crisp, clean folds on the outside. Okay. All right, we are ready to pin and sew this. To pin this, we're going to take, this is the one end of the lanyard. I had just pressed it like that, but now I'm going to slide the lanyard clasp down. And what we're doing here is we're just going to move that lanyard clasp to the middle. And I'm going to bring the 2 ends up together, and I'm going to make sure that the lanyard didn't twist anywhere. So I'm just going to pull it flat and make sure that there's no twisting. Okay, and these 2 ends that I had just pressed, now I'm going to open them up and lay them flat with right sides together and pin it. Now I don't usually pin it, but just for the video I will. But you'll pin right here. Okay, and we're ready to sew across this direction to secure those 2 ends together. We're going to use the industrial machine to make the lanyard. So you're going to use the right edge of the presser foot as your guide, and you're going to just lower that presser foot. You're going to stitch forward about 3 stitches, and then reverse, and then stitch all the way across to the other side, and reverse again. I don't want to lose that pin, so I'm going to drop it back in here. Now this machine is a little different. What I can do when the needle is still down is I can go ahead and pull this out like so. But if my needle is up, then this starts to get hung up. You have to keep turning the hand wheel towards you until it releases, and you can see where it releases, and then it pulls freely. But it's not as easy to see that as it is on your regular machines in class. Okay, so once you have those ends sewn together, you've made one continuous loop. Then you're going to just refold in as you had done before. So by pressing it, it should just want to go right back to where it was. Okay, just like that. You can pin it in place. All right, so I went ahead and pinned mine using the Wonder clips. So you don't actually pin it, you just clip it together. And if you're in class, you can use those too. Then you're just going to come back to the machine. You want to make sure that you have your tails out here ready to get started. You start at the, it's going to be one continuous loop, so it really doesn't matter, but I usually start at the seam just to have something to look for. I'm going to lower the presser foot, turn the hand wheel so the needle goes down. I'm going to go ahead and pull this first clip out just so that it's not in the way, and get the lanyard clasp out of the way. You'll stitch forward about 3 reverse, and for this I'm going to keep the edge of my fabric about halfway on the round of this foot. There's no line or anything to look for, but it's a real close top stitch. Okay, so I just want to Keep an eye on it and make sure that it's even and straight. You know, normally on your other machine, you always have a line to look at. For this particular step, we're just kind of watching the needle and its relationship to the fabric, and then the fabric's relationship to the presser foot. Okay, so we want to just keep it real close to the edge. If you do notice it running off track, just raise that presser foot and kind of lower that down. Now with this machine, it can go really super fast. It is meant to do that. But on the side that's open, I would suggest not going quite as fast, and then you can go really quick when you're doing the other edge. All right, so we're back where we started. You will just go ahead and intersect those original start stitches and reverse there. And then we'll go ahead and be ready to stitch up the other side. So over here, I have to turn my hand wheel just a little bit. There we go, it releases it. And then I can cut those threads really short right here. Okay, now I'm ready to just do the other side. Same manner, but we're gonna see if I can go a little faster on it. Keep those threads underneath the presser foot when you're starting. The reason I can go quicker on this side is I don't have to worry as much about getting those edges tucked in. So only go as fast as you're comfortable with, but do try to push yourself to go a little bit above average with your speed, and then reverse here at the end. Okay, so we're almost done. I'm gonna go ahead and pull those threads loose. And then what I need to do next is I need to decide where I want that lanyard to hang. So I'm going to take that clasp, and I like to have it down near the edges that were open, but not right on it. So for mine, and this is totally your personal preference of where you want yours, mine's about 1 inch above the lanyard clasp. I'm gonna lay that down underneath the presser foot there. And what we're gonna do here is we're just gonna stitch forward and back, several times, about 4 times. And that'll secure the end, okay? When you're done, you can just pull out and go ahead and clip the threads, and then you're completely done with the lanyard portion. And you can set that aside for now until you're finished with the wallet. We're gonna start with our these are the ID badge pieces. We're gonna start with those 2 pieces, right sides together. Okay, so you can either pin them or use wonder clips to clip them together around the edges. So the next thing that you're gonna do is you're gonna take your piece that you've just sewn, and you're going to use your seam gauge, set it at 1/2 inch, and then from the line that you just sewed, you're gonna make markings that are 1/2 inch away from that stitch line. You're gonna do this all the way around. Okay, so then you'll take your ruler and you're gonna connect all those markings. So I've got those markings made. Next thing I need to do is I need to connect on a diagonal. So I'm gonna put my ruler down and connect this point and this point of that inner rectangle. And then I'm gonna do the same thing over here. I'm gonna connect the inner points of that center rectangle to make a diagonal, okay? So here's what we should have. You should have your 2 pieces sewn together using a 1/4 inch seam all the way around. I'm gonna measure 1/2 inch all the way around from the stitch line. And then from there, I'm gonna do my diagonals from corner to corner. So what you're gonna need to do next is you're going to use the rotary blade up here, and you have permission to do this. Just be very safe. So you're going to have the ruler laid out right next to the line that you've just drawn in the diagonal. For these blades, you have to squeeze the handle to activate it. So you're gonna hold your hand out of the way on the ruler. You're gonna squeeze the handle of the blade. You're gonna start right back at the point of that diagonal and just press down until you get close to the corner. So you've kind of cut through like this. And then I'm gonna repeat that on the other side, the other diagonal. Okay, just like that. Then what you can do is with your shears, you can go in and clip even further until you really get to that corner. Just be careful not to cut through that corner line, but you want to cut right up to it. And if you didn't, you can trim it out with your shears. Okay. So for this part, we have just cut the center out of the X. You're gonna take a glue stick, just a regular classroom Elmer's glue stick, and put a little dab of glue there, and then you're gonna fold the triangle point back. Then you rotate, you do the same thing right here. And that's just that top layer, folding it back. This one as well. You'll do all four on this one side, and then you repeat that onto the back side. And I'd already kind of started getting it, so we'll just go ahead and finish this side off. Just a little dab of glue, and then fold those points over. And you should have points that are matching each other. So this point and the other one below it should be identical. This one and the one below it. Okay, you just want to make sure that they're all matching up. We're going to take this over to the iron. All right, you're going to take your sewing shears and you're going to trim down close to the seam allowance. You're going to leave about less than 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to clip at a diagonal across the corner. I'm going to clip down along this side. We don't want to get too close to the seam because you don't want to rip anything, but at the same time you want to reduce all that bulkiness. So we're going to trim those off. I'm going to get this corner. Okay. All right, so we've trimmed that down, and that is actually the inside of the ID case. We need to flip it so that it has the right side out. So I'm going to turn this. Iron it. And I'm also going to take a sharp object with me. I'm going to take these shears and I'm going to poke out the corners. So you'll want something that you can poke your corners out with when you go over to the iron. So you're going to take the clear vinyl piece and you're going to open up those two folds that you've just pressed, and you'll tuck the vinyl up inside there and on the sides. You just have to work with it. So there's, as far as I know at this moment, I have no tricks for you. You just kind of have to work it up in there. Once it's in there, take a Wonder Clip or 2 or 3, and you're just going to want to clamp that down, secure that side so that it stays put while you work on the side and the other end. Oh, you know. Okay, so it's between the two sides. It's up in the end. Get that Wonder Clip. Clip that down. All right, it's just a process, guys. It may not happen on the first time. You might have to work with it for a minute. I'm gonna make sure that it's nice and smooth in there, pulled tight. I'm gonna go back to this top end that I started with and kind of smooth everything out in that direction. Okay. All right, so we are ready now to take this over and sew that vinyl piece in place. All right, we're gonna go ahead and start stitching the vinyl in place. We wanna be about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. And when I say the edge on this, I mean the inner edge. So here's the vinyl. My needle is gonna be about 1/8 of an inch over right here. That way it'll secure down that vinyl piece. All right, so now you have the vinyl secure, and I think you can probably see that black stitch line going all the way around. If I like pull and tug, the vinyl's not coming out. It is secure, okay? So that's what we want. So that part, the window part, is now complete. We just have to attach that to the outside of the wallet. All right, now you're gonna take your main piece from the outside and your window piece, and you're gonna center it across the top of it. What you'll end up with is about, you've got an inch over here, an inch over here, so on both sides you've got an inch, and then down at the bottom it looks like 6/8. Okay, so about 6/8 of an inch on top and bottom and 1 inch on the sides. You are going to leave one of these sides open so that you can actually slide your ID down in it, but the other sides can be pinned in place so that you can sew. All right, we're gonna secure this with a top stitch. So that's about an 1/8 of an inch or less from the edge. This time we're looking at this edge over on the right side of the wallet, at the ID part. I do wanna make sure I have a nice secure back stitch at the beginning. So you need to cut your zipper to 4 3/4 of an inch. So whatever size zipper you start with, you will end up cutting some of it off, okay? So you can just take the rotary cutter, ruler down, and just chop through one end. And I can use the scissors here to kind of clean that up. And then on the mat, you can count over 2, 4, and then 1, 2, 3/4. Those are 3/4 lines. But before you cut, you want to make sure that the zipper is pulled back. We don't want to pull it off because it would just go sliding off at this end. But we do want to cut some of it off. So 2, 4, 3/4. So right here is where we need to trim it. Okay. So we have our zipper ready to go. Now we need to create our zipper tab. You're gonna go to the iron just like you had previously, fold that in half when you made the lanyard. Fold it in half, fold the edges to the center, and then secure it like this. You're gonna end up with a piece that looks like this. Open it up. So I had pressed it down, but now I'm gonna open it to where I can see just the inside, and I'm going to a little bit of that glue stick again. I'm gonna lay the zipper down in there, fold it down, give it a little press with my fingers, and then I'm gonna cut the end off. You can do this with shears or the rotary blade. And then I need to go machine and just stitch across right here. And then I need to repeat the same thing for the other end. So again, about an inch of this. Put the glue down. Now this side, we want to keep those zipper teeth closed. Okay. So lay that down there. Trim the edge off. Okay, so I'm going to go over to the machine now and just stitch right across here on both ends. All right, so this is the last remaining piece that you had left over from that 2-inch wide piece that we made the zipper ends out of. This is the D-ring tab. So now you need to take it over to the machine, and you're just gonna stitch down along both of the sides, do a top stitch, and that'll just secure it before we add the D-ring. Okay, so that has been stitched down both sides parallel. Now you're gonna take that D-ring and slide it onto that loop. Match the ends going across the top. Here's the open edge of the pocket. So you're going to attach it on the right hand side, about an inch down from the top. And then you'll just stitch back and forth about 3 times going across there just to secure that tab. All right, so we're ready to attach the zipper. We have our main piece, the ID badge is attached, your D-ring is attached. Now you need to take the zipper that you have already completed the ends on. You're gonna lay it right side down on the top part of this main piece. And you're gonna have about a little over 1/8 of an inch on each side. So the zipper does not quite go all the way out to the end. That's how you want it. Now I'm gonna take my liner piece and I'm gonna lay it down on top here. And then we're just going to use the Wonder Clips to clip them all together. So you really have a layer of pieces. You've got the first layer is the main piece. The second layer is the zipper. And the third layer is the liner. So it'll be pinned together all like that. And then we're gonna go in and stitch across right here. All right, the great thing about the Juki machine, if you're using it in class, is that you do not have to take off the presser foot and switch in for a zipper foot, which makes it really nice. So we're gonna just use the right edge of the foot, line it up with the right edge of the fabric. I'm gonna go ahead and lower the presser foot. I'm probably gonna need to get this first clip out of the way already. And then I'm just gonna stitch forward. And what's gonna happen is right here is my zipper pull. So I'm gonna have to go around it. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stop right before I get to it. I'm gonna open up the fabric layers. I'm gonna find that zipper and I'm going to pull it past. If I need to raise my presser foot a little bit, I'm gonna pull it past. So now it's way back here and out of the way. I'll lower the foot again, and then I'm just gonna continue to stitch using the right edge lined up. Okay. All right, so we've done one side. This is what you want to see. You want to see the right side of the zipper on the right side of the project, and when I look inside of it, I should see the wrong side of the project, the liner, on the back side of the zipper. All right, so the next thing I want to do, I've just sewn it like this. Now I want to flip it so that my zipper is laying down and the ID badge is smooth across the top, and we're going to put in a top stitch right along here to hold the 2 layers together. Okay, so now if you look here, right along here is that top stitch that we've just sewn in. Okay, we're gonna repeat the other side. So now I have my other liner piece laying down. I'm gonna take the wrong side of the zipper and lay it down on top, and I'm gonna line up across the top of the zipper. Again, I'm gonna have about 1/8 of an inch, closer to 1/4 overage on each side here, up the ends of the zipper. And then here is my other outer piece. I'm gonna lay it down right sides together on top. And then I'm just gonna use those clips again to clip those 3 layers, the liner, the zipper, and the main fabric all together. And just as I had before, I'm going to sew in place using the edge of the foot lined up and stitch right down here. Okay, so what I did there is I went ahead and sewed that zipper on, and then I just took that next step of adding in the top stitching. So if you haven't done that yet, you'll want to go back and do your top stitching straight across here. That just secures that back layer and the top layer together. All right, so we're gonna take this outer fabric, we're gonna bring the 2 ends to meet each other. One thing, notice I have my zipper open right here. You can actually bring it more towards the middle, but we want it open. We don't want it all the way shut. We need that to be open for a later step. Okay, so I'm gonna bring the 2 ends of my outer fabric together, and I'm just gonna clip those together here. And if you've been in my class sewing and you've already made the snack bag, this is exactly the same process that we did for the snack bag, except for the zipper installation is going to be a little neater on this one. So that's really a repeat of something that we've already done. Okay, so what we want to do here is we want to tuck that zipper. These little ends here are going to go toward, like this is the seam allowance, it's going to go toward the liner. What that is going to do is going to force that nice, neat, pretty side right in here that we did those zipper tabs, is going to force that to the main side. So over here again, those little finished raw edges, or those raw edges from the seam allowance, they're going to go toward the liner. Okay. All right, so now this is just secured with those clips. These two clips, so right here and right here, that's where I'm gonna start and that's where I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna leave that opening, but then I'll be stitching all the way around the rest of the entire piece and then stopping right there. The reason I needed that zipper open in there earlier was so that I could feed the whole thing out through this opening, okay? And actually, I may end up leaving it just a little bit wider. I'm gonna do it the width of those clips instead of where I put the... All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and start over here by my clip. I am gonna line up everything with this line right outside of the one, okay? So I'm gonna start by getting my needle down. I'm gonna do a back stitch. And then I'm going to pivot at this corner. Now you may run into a little bit of trouble on this part right here because my presser foot has to go over this big bulky seam. And this machine should be able to handle it, but I'm going to get a hold of it in the back to help guide it through there. So it really went over it, no trouble, but we just had to kind of help guide it through. What we need to do here is clip the corners off. Make sure not to cut through any of the stitching. Trim my threads, and then I'm going to start turning this inside out. Final step, I'm going to go ahead and open the zipper the rest of the way, and I'm going to poke the corners out on the liner. This part I could press if I wanted to, but I'm going to take that opening, turn it under, and you could either hand stitch this if you didn't want any kind of stitching to show, but for this project I don't mind if you use a machine stitch just to top stitch across here and close up that opening. All right, so there's that stitch right here securing the liner. Okay, and then all we have to do now is we have to trim off those loose threads and stuff the liner down into the wallet.